Hello? It's Christy Gray, your newest hype girl and astrologer. Welcome to the Cosmic Hotline.
Hi, gorgeous, and welcome to this week's episode of the Cosmic Hotline. I cannot believe it's here, our final full moon forecast for 2022. How lush! And as always, the stars are not here to disappoint. They're bringing the spice and I'm bringing the tea so you can feel empowered moving forward. There's a few key things that I want to unpack in this week's episode. Not only this particular lunar cycle being our full moon in Gemini, what it means because we're going to have a cosmic collision with not only the full moon, but Mars retrograde in Gemini, and we've got Mercury retrograde on the horizon. So I want to bring some astrological insight and goodness to this week's forecast, but also help to give you the celestial edge because there's going to be a few things at the end I'm going to share with you so that you can feel inspired, empowered, motivated, and more importantly, confident to say no for anything that doesn't serve you in the coming 2 weeks, because how you protect your peace over the next 2 weeks will be paramount before things really take shape as we embark on a brand new year. So let's talk about this particular Gemini full moon. So the moon will be at its peak on the 8th of December at 2:08 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And what I'm already sensing already and what I'm seeing, whether it's with myself, with clients, with conversations with friends, is it's really easy at the moment to feel pulled in lots of different directions. That tends to be the case when we have the sun in Sagittarius, which is wanting us to live our boldest, brightest, most magical life ever. It's all about the high vibes, as I shared with you in a previous episode. But when the moon and sun are in opposition, which creates a full moon, it's this opportunity to shine a light on what is working in our lives and what's not working. Like, what do we need to let go of? What doesn't necessarily serve us anymore? And I think because Gemini is the opposite sign of Sagittarius, which is about freedom, curiosity, and skimming the surface of knowledge, this is where we can feel pulled in so many different directions in our life. That could be because of the time of year, like the holiday season always puts so much pressure on the people in our lives. People are gearing up to take some holidays. So that can sometimes mean extra pressure to get more work done. It's just feeling like there's this immense pressure. And I use this term a lot. Sometimes you can feel like you're in a bit of a pressure cooker when you're being pulled in so many different directions. Now, the other thing that's influencing this week is that we have Mars retrograde in Gemini. So Mars isn't going direct until January. So it's been hanging around for a bit. We're pretty used to its energy at the moment. I think I shared in a previous episode, it's really important that you're expending energy into the right outlets. Having a morning routine, exercising frequently, or having just an outlet for emotion is so important because we've got to remember that Mars is masculine energy. It's assertion, it's drive, it's your outward expression. It's very masculine. And if you don't have an outlet for that, it can, again, it's like this pressure cooker. It needs to go somewhere, which can create conflict with a loved one, or you could have some pent up frustration underneath the surface. And especially if you're not somebody that likes to communicate in the moment, or maybe you like to bottle things up, it can lead to more outbursts. So Mars is definitely making its presence known. That's what I'm getting at. And so, as I was kind of mentioning before, anything that's been brewing under the surface for some time, especially when it comes to your relationships, I would envision it's probably going to come to the surface this week if it hasn't already done so. So it's really important to prioritize open and honest conversations with your loved ones where possible. So if there's an opportunity to do so, please have a conversation. Don't let it boil under the surface so then it gets to breaking point is what I would say. And you know what? I'm also a realist though. Sometimes it's just not worth having that conversation. It could be something that's a continual conversation that you've been having, which you'll have an opportunity in the future to maybe approach it differently. But at the end of the day, if you feel like you're not getting somewhere with someone and it's not somebody that you really need to get somewhere with, if that makes any sense, I would distance yourself as much as possible and protect your peace, baby, because that is far more important. So that could mean getting out of the house, taking a moment for you, prioritizing some me time, purely because when there is so much pressure as the end of the year approaches, is that you can be the most empowered, inspired, and motivated person, but it doesn't mean the other people in your life are as well. So we want to influence people because we want the best for them. But sometimes at the end of the day, it's more important to put on your oxygen mask first before assisting others. So a little alone time can work wonders. Essentially, what I'm getting at is this lunation is supercharged. And what I love about the Sagittarius-Gemini axis, but also the other astrological energy we have surrounding this particular lunation, it's going to help you to prioritize what's important. Remember when I said before that you'll feel pulled in multiple directions? Well, the reality is you can't do it all. And you can't do it all at once. So you're going to have to prioritize. I think when we're in the moment, it's easy to feel really overwhelmed, but sometimes all it takes is stepping away from your computer or your desk or your workplace and taking a moment for you. And normally, if you get a good night's sleep, the next day, things just don't seem as potent as they were in those moments. So prioritize. That is going to be important. I have a question for you, babe. Have I sparked your curiosity in this episode and you're keen to learn more? If the answer is yes, then I've got you. The best place to start is Astrology Unlocked. In this one-to-one session, which is a KG cult favorite, we'll explore how you can start stepping into the vibration of your higher self by diving into your key astrological placements and unpacking what they might have in store for you. Do you want to know what my favorite thing that a client says to me at the end of an Astrology Unlocked session is? I didn't even know what to expect, but this is far more than I ever could have anticipated. And do you know why that is? It makes me so excited. It's because it's a whole new world out there when you graduate from reading your horoscope to understanding your natal chart. You'll find the 411 about Astrology Unlocked linked in the show notes below, or you can send me a message at hello@christygray.com if you have any questions first you'd love answered. Now, let's talk a little bit about Mars retrograde, because I was kind of alluding to this before, but when Mars is thrown in the mix, especially at a lunar cycle, and Mars will be conjunct the Gemini full moon, which is why I'm talking about this particular planet, it's really important to get curious at what drives you. What sets your soul on fire? What makes you feel alive? And how can you do more of that moving into the new year? You don't have to take action. It's more about getting curious. Are you finding that your life is lighting you up from the inside out? And if it's not, what can you do to change that? You don't have to have a solution right here, right now, but it's important that you have a practice in place to allow you to get curious. I'm going to talk about journaling in a little bit, but I always think that that's a great way for self-inquiry, because here's the caveat. I don't think that you're going to have revelations at the full moon. I know full moons are about revelations because they shine a light on what's working and what's not so hot. But I think you will have some epiphanies on the day after, because the day after the full moon, the sun is going to be in opposition to Mars. And it's going to shine a light on what you need to let go of. So rather than putting so much pressure on yourself at this particular full moon to work through your rituals, to gain clarity and perspective, it's more about getting curious. I've been using experimentation with a few different clients at the moment about how they can get curious, ask more questions. It's not to unearth the solution straight away. It's more to, I suppose, create a thread so you can actually pull something. So my suggestion would be to take some time out for self-connection. Don't journal or meditate for those answers. Instead, use it for self-inquiry. If you're not a big journal person, I get it. It's sometimes the hardest thing to do. It's like you open a blank page, you stare at it, and you're like, where to from here? And there is so many different ways that you can approach journaling. There is no right or wrong way. And sometimes it's just as easy as putting pen to paper. But one thing that I love to do at this time of year, and this is what I'm going to be doing at this particular full moon, is I'm going to brain dump everything that I have in my mind right now. So whether it be business related, relationship related, friendship, holidays, you name it. And I'm just going to get everything that's weighing on my mind onto paper. Then what I invite you to do is separate your page. So you could get some A4 paper for this, or you can do it in your journal, and separate your page into 3 columns. And I want you to label each column. So there's going to be a column for past, present, and future. And so all of those thoughts that you've brain dumped down, or you can do it in the columns as you go, depending on how you like to roll. But those thoughts that are coming up, I want you to add them to the relevant column. So for example, if you're worrying about, I don't know, like a work Christmas party coming up, or maybe it's a holiday function that you need to attend, I want you to write that down. And what are the feelings that are coming up for you? And essentially, because it hasn't happened yet, add it to the future column. You could be brewing over a shitty conversation that you had with your bestie or a family member from last week. Maybe the conversation didn't go to plan because, again, everyone's like energy is amplified right now. Write it down. Like, how do you feel about it? And also, what column are you going to attach it to? It's going to be in the past, baby, because it's something that's previously happened. And what I'd love you to do is, if you do decide to do this practice, is it will help you to see where your thoughts are coming from. Is it something that you're actually experiencing in the present moment? Is it something that's happened in the past? Is it something that hasn't even happened yet? Just get it down. I want you to leave it and let the sun do its job the following day, because it's going to allow you to have some perspective shifts. And so just doing that act of writing things down and taking some time for self-inquiry, that's going to help you to move forward. Now, why I am getting on my high horse about all of this is because you know what's coming. Mercury retrograde is on the horizon. So we've got Mercury about to move into the sign of Capricorn. By the time that this episode is released, it may have already moved. And when Mercury is in Capricorn, you'll feel compelled to speak your mind. That's really normal. So it's important, again, to keep those communication lines open with your loved ones and have positive outlets for expression. And this is what I love about astrology, is that we don't just have one planet or one aspect symbolizing something. Everything is always working in cohesion together. So a lot of the messages I see when I'm casting a natal chart, I keep seeing the message. It just gets presented in a different way as another layer for you to view things through, which is the same for your natal chart. There's always another layer or another perspective to unearth. And so if you're frustrated at the moment, it's going to be really important that you take a breath, go for a walk, put up a boundaries in place, and say to whether it's a work colleague, a friend, or a family member, I just need to take a moment. Can we reconvene soon? It's going to be really important that you listen to your people in your life, right? Because I'm big on the whole, like two-way, it takes two to tango, baby. But try to avoid putting yourself into situations where you won't be your best self. Mercury is going to go retrograde in Capricorn on the 29th of December. So we're going to hit the shadow period of this particular transit mid-month. So know that there could be some crossed wires that could start to present themselves when chatting with friends and family. So there's just a lot that's happening. But at the end of the day, it's not actually a bad thing. I always think like these periods of time where things are supercharged in the cosmos, they give us opportunities to upgrade how we communicate, how we can find middle ground with the people in our life that we really care about. And they also inspire us to find new ways to step into the highest version of ourselves. And look, I'm a big believer, if you've listened to any of the podcast episodes before, especially when I've touched on Mercury retrograde, I don't see Mercury as a bad thing. I think it's an opportunity for mastery. And because it's residing in the industrious sign of Capricorn, some of the questions or things that I'd be exploring is, are my systems and processes working? Like, what am I currently working towards? Are my partner and I, if you're in a relationship, working towards the same goals? If you're single, what are you actually working towards right now? And are you trying to call in a partner that isn't necessarily on the same trajectory as you, but your values are aligned? It's really important that partnership is all about working together towards something that is important to you. Another lens you could view this through is, are you showing up in your career or in your job in a way that's aligned to your higher self? Are you managing your money in empowering ways? And most importantly, what areas of your life are you spending time on and they're not worth your attention anymore because guess what? You've changed. Use this opportunity to start to get curious, and you don't have to have it all figured out. It's not about that. And if you listen to last week's episode, you have to bet on you. It's about prioritizing you. You're worthy of prioritizing you. So if you've changed, it's okay because you aren't the same person that you were yesterday. So overall, the energy, there's a lot lingering over the next 2 weeks, and there's a lot of astrological aspects that will be taking place until our next lunar cycle, which will be the final new moon of 2022, which is in our industrious sign of Capricorn. But I invite you to slow down, protect your peace, nourish your relationships. And when I say relationships, I mean the right relationships. Say no to things that don't light you up. And if you're not good at saying no, this is your celestial invitation to do so. Put boundaries in place to protect your time, energy, and more importantly, your well-being. The tides will be turning. Like everything's about to change in 2 weeks' time. And we're going to have Jupiter, the planet of expansion and abundance, ruler of Sagittarius, moving into Aries as we hail in Capricorn season. So until then, don't be afraid to put yourself first. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and next week I'm diving into all of your questions. The entire episode is dedicated to you and any pending questions that need to be answered. So until then, stay cool, stay hydrated, and stay celestial.